Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Please like and subscribe to help out if you like the content. Today we're mainly going to be going over if I was to have a conversation with somebody on how to save money and time on flight training. So I'm going back and what I would do different. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get into it.
Let's get started.
All right, guys. Finally doing it. Finally doing my first video. I'm out here taking the dog on a walk. Got my weighted vest. Let's see if I can. So, most of my videos are going to be aviation themed or business themed, maybe a little bit of fitness. But probably what the title of this video is going to be is if I could do it again, how could I save the most amount of money and the most amount of time? A little bit about me. Right now I'm a commercial pilot for single engine. I'm still in school. I'm about a month out from CFI check ride, which is certificated flight instructor. And I just wanted to give some advice on if I was to do it again, how would I do it faster and cheaper? So, this is definitely geared towards those who are motivated and want to get it done faster, because it took me a while, probably close to 4 years going on and off, with different things happening and life and working and whatnot. And I've been to Part 141 schools, which is where I did most of my training, and then also Part 61 schools. But with all the research I've done and all my experience, if I was to do it again, if I had any advice for anybody starting this journey, the first thing I would do is definitely make sure you can get your medical. That is a must. You have to get your medical. And I would try to get maybe a first class or second class, or look into whatever kind of job you're wanting to get and see what type of medical is required for that job. Because if you can't get your medical, then we all know you can't fly. So, make sure you can get your medical. Look on the FAA.gov website. It gives you kind of the parameters on getting your medical. And if either A, you can go seek an AME, which is a aviation medical examiner, and you can go ahead and pay. I think mine usually costs around $150, and they'll just give you your medical and make sure that you can get it. If you don't want to get it, you don't want to spend the money yet, you're still doing your research, just read over it and make sure that you qualify and you're able to obtain your medical. So after you've done that, and you know that you can get your medical for your ultimate goal, start researching schools, watching as many YouTube videos, tons of YouTube videos out there with free training and whatnot. And I would honestly start ground school for whatever license you're going for. If it's your private, just start the ground school for it. Ground schools now are pretty cheap, and you don't need to be in flight school to be in ground school, and you can just start training. And then I would crank out the written tests as soon as possible. For whatever license you're going for, there's usually a written test associated with it. And usually you can take your written test and you have a year to take your check ride. So a lot of guys who are going through an accelerated program, they'll just download a program called Shepherd Air. And Shepherd Air is really, really good. I've used it for, I think, 4 of my examinations. And every time I've used Shepherd Air, I've always gotten a 90% or better. The 2 times I didn't use Shepherd Air were my lower scores. So take it from me, I would definitely use Shepherd Air. It's kind of old school. You got to make a phone call, and they get you all set up, and it's usually pretty cheap, around $50 to $60. Some of them might be a little bit more expensive. I'm not affiliated with Shepherd Air or anything like that. That's what I've used to pass the test. So once you get your written test done, The reason I'm recommending doing that first is because once you get your written test done, now you can just focus on flying and learning the knowledge that you need to know to be a good pilot. If you constantly have that monkey on your back, like, oh, I got to study, I got to take my written test, it can kind of hinder your flight training a little bit. So once you got your written test done, you're doing your research, then you decide what kind of school you want to go to. And sorry about the dogs barking, guys. This is just raw footage walking in the neighborhood. Once you get your written test done and now you're researching schools, you want to find an accelerated program. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an accelerated program. 141 schools are great. They have great training. They have great affiliate programs. But counter to popular belief, I wouldn't say they're accelerated. But if you are at a Part 141 school, or if you're at a Part 61 school, or if you find an independent instructor, you really just want to fly as much as you can. If you're only flying 1-2 times a week, it's a perishable skill, and you can lose your skills, and then you're constantly having to do more flights to retrain. And then if you're only flying 1 or 2 times a week, if weather happens and you have to cancel a flight, now you only flew once that week, or maybe you flew 0 times. So definitely I would try to fly 3 to 5 times a week, or even more if you can swing it. And that'll keep your skills sharper. You won't have to do as many makeup flights or retraining flights, and that ultimately will really, really increase your time in flight school. If you're trying to go through as fast as you can, it also will save you money. So, and the biggest problem, biggest topic is definitely money. How to save money. And like I just told you, doing the things that we talked about, getting your writtens done, finding the right school for you, interview the instructors, interview the schools, make sure it's right for you, and don't just jump the gun on the first school you find. I'd really try to slow yourself down and read the reviews on the schools, read the reviews on the instructors, make sure they have aircraft available, and I would ask about their maintenance, if they have in-house maintenance or not. So now you're flying 4 to 5 times a week. You're going to keep your skills sharp, and ultimately that's going to save you the most money. Guys who are doing it like this, who either are seeking out independent instructors or getting those Part 61 schools where you can actually fly 5 days a week. I've heard of dudes getting through in 3 to 6 months, getting all their ratings all the way to MEI, which is multi-engine instructor. That's super, super fast. But you have to be ready for it. You have to be prepared for it. It is stressful. It's definitely not an easy thing. You got to want it. You got to love airplanes. You got to love flying. But if you do all that, like I said, you really fly and dedicate yourself to it, 4 to 5 times a week. And you can most certainly do it with a job. If you're doing it, kind of breaking it up, like how I'm saying. But it is harder with a job, because when I was getting my private license, I had a job, and it definitely was super challenging, but it is doable, and I did it. But if I was going through again, I would definitely do as I just told you, and I would have all the written stuff and the medical and everything knocked out first, and then I would just hit flight training super, super hard and get ready for the check rides and go through like that. And I think that would save you the most money. And obviously, when you're interviewing the schools and looking at options to save the most money, you just want to look at their hourly rates. If schools are giving you like a big number, like, hey, if you come with us, we can get your flight training done for $63,000 for all your licenses, and I'm just throwing that number out there just to throw it out there. That usually is going based on the minimums. So if you're there's certain hour requirements and things like that with an instructor, and for solo flight and all kinds of things like that. So they're probably basing that on the minimums. And in my experience, most people with one license or another need more training than just the minimums. So I would not take that number at face value. I would maybe double it or times it by 1.5. But really what would be nice is I would try to ask for an hourly rate. What's an hourly rate for the plane? What's the hourly rate for the plane with the instructor? And then what's the hourly rate just for an instructor if you're doing ground lessons? And that'll kind of give you an estimate. You can go in and find the minimums for the hour requirements in the FAA website as well. And you can plug in those numbers and then see what the flight training is really going to cost you. As far as where I'm from in the Arizona area, I would say a cheaper school is going to be around 240 to 250 per hour with an instructor and an airplane. And a more expensive school is probably going to be 360 to 400 an hour. So a really, really huge difference. But also just keep in mind, just because the school is the cheapest doesn't mean it's necessarily the best. So that's where doing your research and really looking into the school and interviewing the school per se will help you the most. And I'll probably do another video on how to interview a school. But just remember, you're spending the money to get your ratings and to get your license. So really, you are the student, but you're also the customer, because you're paying for you're paying for a service that they're providing for you. So you ultimately need to be happy. And then for my last biggest tip to make sure you get through is, once you start a license, if you start your private, if you start your instrument, if you start your commercial instructor, whatever rating you're on, just finish that rating. Take it one step at a time. Think about your next goal. If you're looking at the end of it and you're like, oh, this is getting too hard, it's so far away, then shorten up the goal. If you're getting your private license and you're struggling with, you're like, oh, I got to get 40 hours or 50 more hours to get this license. Well, just focus on what you're doing. If you're doing steep turns, become a master of steep turns, and don't try to rush it. Don't try to look towards the end. Just look at the next goal, look at the next day, look at the next lesson, and just try to master that. And then get that rating done. I think the worst mistake that I made was taking a pause in between ratings. I took a pause on private at least 3 times, and took a pause in instrument for a month or so, maybe a month and a half, and that made it a lot more challenging. So I really wish that I would have just finished the license, and that way when I came back to aviation, I would have had that license done and not had to start all over from the beginning. So guys, I hope this video helps. I'll be around for more tips and gonna make more videos. This definitely is my first one, so the quality is what it is. And like I said, I'm walking my dog with a weighted vest. But as always, I hope you guys continue to learn, and definitely always have fun and be safe. Thank you.